Across Canada and around the world, Indigenous youth are driving change and innovating for a just and prosperous future. Young People Know is a podcast series featuring conversations with Indigenous young people about what organizations can do to get youth engagement right. Brought to you by the MasterCard Foundation and Indigenous 150 Plus. Find Young People Know on all podcast players or by visiting indigenouspodcast.ca.
There was a time during the pandemic when homeless people became more visible than ever before. Their usual haunts were closed and social distancing reduced the number of shelter beds. So some began living in Winnipeg Transit bus shelters. The glass enclosures are meant to protect bus riders from the sun, rain, and snow. But one became home for Teresa Bauer after she was sexually assaulted at Nadinawimak, an Indigenous homeless shelter. She lived in the bus shack for 2 months during a frigid Manitoba winter, begging the question, where are Indigenous women supposed to feel safe? I'm Kathleen Martins. This is Our Relatives. A warning. This episode deals with disturbing subject matter.
No person should be living in there. I'm sure we can do much better than this. Nobody should have to live like this.
It's one of the busiest blocks on Main Street. Today it's the site of a protest.
I know exactly the things that goes on in these places, and it's very horrible, the things that go on. And if the public knew, and they would be out there with us and trying to get this place shut down also.
Barb Guimond and Vinnie Lilly advocate for some of the most vulnerable people in society, the homeless. They're worried about the Manwin Hotel, a dilapidated building on the Main Street Strip that rents 30 rooms by the month. People have been killed here.
Yeah, I heard the last murder that went on.
When was that?
About a month ago, 2 months ago.
Was it in the room?
That guy's like, please remember me, remember me.
Who was the victim?
Some old man, that's all I know.
What happened to him?
He got beaten to death.
Tammy, who wouldn't give her last name, is from an Ojibwe community northeast of Winnipeg. She and her boyfriend use drugs and live in one of the cramped rooms. She wouldn't stay there alone. That's why Barb is here. She's leading the charge to shut the Manwin down.
I went in there into the lobby, and I couldn't get past there because the smell, the stench.
What does it smell like?
Terrible.
Well, can you,
A mixture of urine and whatever. I have a high tolerance for smell, and I couldn't stand that. I had to walk out. And I don't see how people can be living in there.
Today, she's taking reporters inside, where it's dark, looks like trouble, and reeks of neglect. The owners defend their business. They say the rooms are needed when shelter beds fill up, and the 134-year-old building is undergoing repairs ordered by the city. They charge $650 a month for a room without a bathroom. So much grime and garbage collects on this block that city workers regularly pressure wash the sidewalk.
Well, it's decrepit and just uninhabitable in my opinion. I've heard that there's kids being taken there and women being held against their will there, and that's not right.
There are 4 homeless shelters in this area, once known as Skid Row. It's about 15 minutes north of the famous intersection at Portage and Main.
So you're closing down the Manwin?
I hope so.
Right on.
hope so.
Yeah. The place is terrible.
Yeah.
The Manwin is covered in graffiti and several windows are broken. It's sandwiched between the Main Street Project homeless shelter and a food bank. Barb fears women are lured inside for a drink, a fix, or a place to sleep, especially since a suspected serial killer allegedly met his victims at homeless shelters.
More trafficking, human trafficking of our women, more murders of our women, and that's what I'm trying to prevent. No more stolen sisters.
Statistics show Indigenous women are 4 times more likely to be victims of crime than non-Indigenous women. That number quadruples if they are homeless.
My sister's name was Stephanie Ann Henderson. She was a mother of 5 children. She got married when she was young, 17. She left an abusive marriage. And she came out to the city, got involved with drugs.
The median age for women experiencing homelessness in Winnipeg is 36. Barb's sister was about that age when she was murdered.
This was 2004 is when she got killed, execution style. And of course we had a closed casket.
Her sister's murder drives Barb to keep an eye on homeless women and girls, and the Manwin.
My dad told us to let it go and we'll just let her rest in peace. But her story needs to be told too.
Winnipeg is a capital city with about 1 million people. It has the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada at 18%. There are 634 First Nations in Canada, with 63 of them in Manitoba. Just west of Portage-en-Main is the city's downtown, where the Winnipeg Jets play. Most of the workers have gone for the day, when Ashley, who wouldn't provide her last name, has a transit bus shelter to herself.
So I choose to be on the street. So till I change my lifestyle, then I won't have to live like this.
Ashley has been homeless since her children went into foster care. Mothers who grow up in the child welfare system are flagged as parenting risks. There are about 10,000 children in Manitoba's child welfare system. Approximately 90% of them are Indigenous.
I fought every day to get him back and stuff, and it just wasn't getting me anywhere. So, I mean, if I was at home with my kids, I wouldn't be in this area, you know what I mean?
Ashley has ties to a Cree community in Alberta. Here, she sleeps on a friend's couch or in dark places outside. She lost her monthly child support when the kids were seized, and her home when she couldn't pay the rent. Advocates say it's poverty, addiction, and domestic violence that usually put women on the street. They don't mention how losing your children could cause all 3. That's what happened to Morgan Harris.
That broke my mother, Morgan. What she faced after that was something that no person ever, of any color, should have to face. Struggling with addictions, losing her home, losing her children, battling mental illness. Morgan didn't deserve to live in fear. She didn't deserve anything that was passed on to her within her life. Morgan didn't deserve to get beaten by men on the streets and raped.
Cambria Harris is Morgan's eldest daughter. She eulogized her mom at a recent candlelight vigil, where there were prayers, songs, and drumming.
Those were the stories that I heard growing up, and that's the stark reality of an Indigenous woman struggling to find a safe place on the streets. Morgan didn't deserve to be sleeping in back lanes. Morgan didn't deserve to be sleeping on a thin little bed on a metal frame in a shelter, and she deserves so much more, and she was worth so much more.
Morgan and Ashley weren't eligible to stay in women's shelters because they weren't victims of domestic violence. When Morgan died in 2022, police allege she was murdered by a suspected serial killer. It's been cleaned up since the pandemic, when Air Canada Park became a homeless encampment known for shocking daytime violence. It's in this downtown green space where Teresa Bauer shares her story of being sexually assaulted at a homeless shelter.
I fell asleep in front of the TV, and I woke up, there was a sheet on me, and my pants were down, and I just turned around and started punching the guy out, and then I got up and I started screaming, my pants was down.
You woke up in time.
Yeah.
And then you decided what?
I'm not staying there. I'm not safe there.
Teresa fled to a bus shelter.
I stayed there for 2 months, and I stayed there when the last storm of the winter.
A Cree woman from northern Manitoba. She was 5 when her mother died. She was sent 750 kilometers to Winnipeg to grow up in foster care, where she was sexually abused. But the motorists who honked at her in the bus shelter and flipped her the bird didn't know that.
I don't care what people say. They can say whatever they want to say.
For the manman, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see you later, Barbara,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So in front of the manman.
Barb was sexually assaulted in her Anishinaabe Nation outside Winnipeg by a known predator. She says it's a terrifying experience that happens in many communities and sends victims packing for the city, where they aren't really safe at all.
My sister told me, Barb, thanks for everything, I love you. And that's the last time we saw her alive.
On the next episode of Our Relatives.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Homeless people are largely invisible. They miss out on a lot of things and the support of family and friends until someone mentions their birthday. I'm Kathleen Martins. Goodbye for now. Our Relatives, written and reported by Kathleen Martins. Recorded and edited by Jesse Andrushko. Produced by Mark Blackburn. Original theme music by Backyard Rink. Cover art by Shania Murdoch and Alicia Dawn.
Hello, I'm Rick Harp, host of APTN News Brief, a daily podcast version of the nightly broadcast of APTN National News. Available on all major podcast platforms, APTN News Brief is your quick way to hear the headlines every weekday morning. Learn more at aptnnews.ca/podcasts.